Ladies and gentlemen, as you can tell, we're about to have an incredible podcast episode. But before we get into this, we just want to give a big shout out to our partner, which is First Responder Blinds. Listen, it's hot. Maybe you need a roller shade on the back. If you need blinds, plantation shutters, give them a call. And remember that windows need heroes too. Before we get into this, we're just going to go over our disclaimer. The Big Vision podcast does not endorse, support, or oppose any candidate running for public office or anyone holding public office. Our platform exists to provide open dialogue, transparency, and community conversation by giving candidates and public officials the opportunity to share their background, beliefs, qualifications, vision directly with the public. The opinions, stats, and statements expressed by guests are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Big Vision podcast. Our goal is to encourage informed voters to respectful dialogue within the community. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Mr. Wade Newman.
How you doing, sir? Appreciate
Good.
it.
Thanks for coming on.
Sure.
So let's just hop right in this, Mr. Newman, and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure, I appreciate it. So I am a resident of Watauga County. I grew up here. This is my home. My family on my mom's side is sixth generation. We've been here pretty much since Daniel Pratt. I grew up here, graduated class of 1983 for Prattville High School. My family's been deeply entrenched here. As a matter of fact, some of you may know my great uncle was a school teacher at Prattville High School, Mr.
Wow.
Murray, what they call a Big M at the time.
Awesome.
So I mean, my family's been here for decades. I graduated in '83 and joined the Army in 1984. And I did 20 years in the U.S. military. I was an infantryman. I attended airborne school, air assault school, drill sergeant school, ranger school. I served for 20 years, deployed several different places, and retired in '04, and then started working as a security professional for some large corporations. I was a physical security manager for globally for a technology company. I have a technology degree, information technology degree, bachelor's in information technology, and most of the companies I've worked for have been technology. Started out in the physical security world as a global manager and director, overseeing our offices around the world, running a centralized operations center, managing all the alarms, the camera systems, the badging, and we did executive protection for the executives, as well as investigative work. I did a lot of fraud investigative work, counterfeit product, RMA or return merchandise fraud. I've recovered millions of dollars in fraud through working with Secret Service or the FBI. Actually, to be honest with you, most of it with postal inspectors. So I've got a background in physical security that I then translated into working in resiliency, business continuity, disaster recovery. I do a lot of work with started working with Hewlett-Packard, for example, going out around the world and inspecting their data centers, making sure that physical security controls were in place. They had the right camera systems, access control systems, walking through and ensuring they had the right access controls in place so that the data centers were secure. There's an ISO certification that is done on the IT side, and that's what I've been doing. I work for a tech company out of Boston right now as a resiliency director. A lot of the data fail over from one server to another, one data center to another. So I'm pretty well versed in physical security. I've worked very closely with law enforcement. I have an IT degree, and I work for the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer for the company I'm in. So that's my background that I have. I just recently moved home in 2022. I could have chosen to move anywhere. I moved back home because, that's my home. My mom is still here. I've got a brother here that works for the state. I've got a brother that works over in Auburn. My sister's here as well. Cousins. I have plenty of family members in and around and friends. And it's my hometown. A lot of people don't realize a lot of times when you join the Army and you leave your home never leaves you. So I was connected back and forth, but it was nice to be able to move back home and be home again.
Yeah.
So.
Let me ask you this real quick, and we're going to get into it. I just kind of want to know this. What's your favorite part or favorite thing about Prattville?
You know, it's a unique city. That's what I like about it. It was founded by a New Englander. It has a New England style feel downtown. It's obviously grown bigger than that, but it still is a small city with a small town feel. And I think it's that unique perspective. And I think it draws a lot of people to the city because of that. I mean, you know, to be right down on the creek, right down there, you know, in downtown Prattville, and to be able to see the Gin Hill and the surrounding area, to drive across Bridge Street and the bridge and see people playing in the creek down there, you know, to have the open artesian wells. I mean, it's just, to me, it's just, you know, it's home, but to me, it's a unique location, and I really appreciate the community and the, you know, the place itself.
Yeah, you know, I agree. You know, I think Prattville is a wonderful community. I love the downtown area as well. If you've not been down to downtown Prattville, you need to check it out. I believe it's one of a kind. Everybody involved with the decision making with all that stuff, top tier. I love it during Christmas time. You go down there, there's lights everywhere, huge Christmas tree. So, man, it is incredible. So let me ask this, Mr. Newman. What motivated you to come on the podcast today?
Well, it's interesting because I had no intention to come on the podcast, but I watched your podcast with Mr. Harrell, and I felt compelled to follow up with his invitation when he said during his podcast, I wish that people would tell the whole story. And there was a discussion around 911 and a mapping issue that they had, and I felt after watching his interview that I should do exactly what he invited us to do, which was to come in and talk about that and tell the whole story.
Okay, awesome. Let me ask this. For listeners unfamiliar, can you tell us what the 911 GPS system is and what it's designed to do?
Sure. So to get into that, really, I want to talk quickly about the 911 dispatch center itself. The 911 dispatch center itself is a dispatch center that is county board ran, and it receives a spill from the state for 911, and we dispatch to 6 different areas. Half of that is the city of Prattville, and half of that is the county. The city of Prattville has its own law enforcement group, its own fire department, and EMS. The county side is a little different. They have the Ottawa County Sheriff's Officer to match the law enforcement piece, Haynes Ambulance to match the emergency medical, and then the volunteer fire department takes the place of that. So it's one centralized location, and a 911 center is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation. It's very complex. It's very high visibility. You have a group of people that are certified to run that equipment. They're certified to access the data that's on the systems that they use to dispatch, and they are certified in medical training. I mean, we deliver babies on the phone, the dispatchers. They do a lot of work, highly trained. It's a stressful job. We deal with a lot of turnover sometimes because the stress over time, the grind of the day-to-day dealing with traumatic experiences. These guys are the true first responders, and they put a lot of work and effort into doing their job. I would say that if you're curious more about it, our Facebook page is a place you can go to follow and see what they do. You'd be surprised the things that we post on there that they're involved with. Like I said, from delivering babies, CPR. I mean, they do a lot. They do a lot, and they really work very well with our law enforcement officers and our medical services. Prattville Police Department, Prattville Fire Department, can't say enough good things about them. Chief Bingham, Chief Thompson, constantly in contact with them and dealing with them. I think the emergency services on the Prattville side have run better, in my personal opinion, than they probably have in the last 20 years. And that's a direct quote from both of the chiefs as far as I'm concerned with that. So it's a very complex organization run. And a topic came up at a city council meeting, and it was asked by a citizen about city services. And the question was around the fact that the 911 center could not see mapping, or GIS mapping, which is a standard term. It's kind of like a Xerox. I mean, a lot of people know that there's GIS mapping or GPS mapping. It's similar. It's the same thing. It's just a different infrastructure. But When the question was asked by the person at the end of the meeting, in a city meeting, I answered it because, as the council knows, I am on the 911 board and I am on the public safety board for the city, and I was probably the best person to be able to answer the question on the spot. So I answered the question with the fact that, which is a fact, that 911's access to GPS mapping with the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office had been turned off. And I believe the sheriff on your show backed that fact up with the fact that he had turned off GPS mapping. So while watching that podcast and hearing what he had to say, he alluded to a couple of things that I'd like to address in this podcast, because I am very proud of our 911 dispatchers and what they do, and our collaboration and coordination with our law enforcement partners and medical service partners and volunteer and regular fire department. And I would like to make sure that that's not left hanging out there in a way that would disparage the 911 office in any way.
I got you. So let's kind of talk about that. So Sheriff Harrell stated that the system was removed because the 911 employee used it to facilitate drug purchases. And I don't know if it will, but Sheriff Harrell, if you do watch this and I've not quoted that right, reach out to me. I'll make sure I quoted you right. But basically, the employee was using it to buy drugs. Is that?
That's what the sheriff's office said, and I'm not disputing that. I can't confirm or deny that. I will lean into the fact that he said that because he conducted the investigation, and I don't have any reason to discredit that or think that's not true. There was an employee at 911 that was dealing drugs, and in the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office did an investigation, determined that he was selling drugs, and they arrested him.
I got you.
He was a 911 dispatcher, he was dealing drugs, and he was arrested. Now, that doesn't mean that every 911 dispatcher is doing drugs. I mean, there have been law enforcement officers that have done things they shouldn't do, and we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We made, we ensured that we made whatever corrections we needed to. We do a drug screening before we hire anybody. We do a background check, and we do random drug testing. So, that is a reason. I don't feel that that is a valid reason to turn off the GPS mapping access for our 911 dispatchers to be able to see where law enforcement officers are traveling around the county when an emergency happens. It's not a best practice, and it's not a reason that I would condone as a solid or a valid reason to have a 2-year window now where we are operating blind without knowing where the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office deputies are when we dispatch.
I got you. So what do you feel like the problem with that is?
So it's complicated as to how it played out. There were a couple of factors involved, and this is where the background story that I would like to make sure is told. So there were a couple of dynamics there. There was a time when there was some water damage done to the 911 center, and we were relocating to, maybe a lot of people don't realize this, but we have a backup 911 center at Fire Station before in Prattville.
Gotcha.
And the city of Prattville has built out a redundant backup operations center. So if there is ever a problem at the 911 center, we can fall back into that, and we can dispatch for the county out of that location. So we relocated there. We made sure we had everything up and operational. We stopped systems operations there, and we redid the flooring, we repainted the walls, we did a lot of work. While that was going on, we had a second issue that came up, and this was kind of a big issue for 911 as well as the city of Prattville and the county itself. We had a meeting invite that was sent out around this time that the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office wanted to talk with us about their CAD system. Now, I don't want this to be super technical, so I'm going to try to explain this very simply.
Thank you. I'm the guy who needs that broke down, okay?
So the computer-assisted display, or the CAD system, when a 911 call comes in, it comes into the CAD system. The dispatcher is able to enter information. There's information that's entered automatically. If you're using a cell phone, your location and other data is automatically populated into that system, which speeds up the process. You're on the phone calling the 911 dispatcher, he's making notes. If he needs to dispatch medical services, he can see where you are. He knows where the medical services are on the map. He can tag that station or tag that law enforcement officer, the closest one, and they can respond. Response time is critical in an emergency, and we want to be able to dispatch and respond as quickly as we possibly can. So that CAD system that we had was a single server. Think of it as a filing cabinet with 5 drawers. The top 3 drawers were Prattville, and the bottom 2 drawers were the county. We had a single server shared throughout the county so that the Prattville Police Department and the Todd County Sheriff's Office were on that single server, multi-agency. That is not a non-standard practice. Huntsville operates in this capacity, and they have multiple agencies, more than 2. Tuscaloosa does the same thing. There are several areas around the state that operate with multi-agency operating out of a single server. But the sheriff's office decided they didn't want to do that anymore. I'm not sure of the reason, but because of that, they went out and purchased equipment, infrastructure, their own server, and their own software, their own CAD system. Now, CADs are a software system, so it's similar to Windows or Mac. And what had happened before 911 was notified of this, without any collaboration, they stood their own CAD system up and then expected us to be able to push information to them. Well, it's like a Windows machine talking to a Mac machine. We push information to Haynes, and Haynes dispatches their own people. It's easy to push information one way, but if you're not dispatching, then it becomes problematic. The CAD has to talk over and talk back in order for the dispatcher to be able to do their job. So now enters what we call ECAD to CAD. ECAD to CAD is a translator. It is now like a Windows machine talking to a Mac, or a Spanish person talking to an English person. There has to be some translation going on if they don't both speak the same language. In this case, they don't. That ECAD to CAD system is a beta test version, so it's buggy. Information gets pushed over, it can get corrupted. Information coming back can get corrupted. It doesn't operate in real time like the single server did. It also separates the data. The data was in one server, so if a law enforcement officer ran a driver's license, it searched the single server and it would ping if there was a warrant in either area because it was on the single database. Segregated, but it was able to search across the 2 of them. Now that database is separated into a different CAD system, and because it's in a different CAD system, we can't see. They can't see our warrants, we can't see their warrants. If a deputy pulls somebody over and wants to know about a Prattville warrant, they have to call dispatch, and we have to check for them and then come back and tell them. And if a Prattville police officer wants to run a warrant to see if there's anything in the county, we have to call down to the sheriff's office. We didn't have to do that before. We had a collaborative system, shared costs. We've created a redundant system now with redundant costs and extra steps in a process with a system. So while all this was going on and we were dealing with all this, our GPS had been turned off, so we couldn't see. Now, they don't have a GIS mapping on the CAD system like we do, but they have like a Verizon fleet track, right?
Let me ask you this. What is, you said it was a GIS?
Yeah.
What is that so the viewers can know?
GIS and GPS are basically the same thing.
Okay.
It's just a different type of infrastructure
Gotcha.
that layers on top of the vehicles. But the GPS system that the Todd County Sheriff's Office had was like a Verizon fleet tracker. And they had that account, and they paid for that system, and we were users on that account. So they had turned off our access. We assumed it was because we were doing this integration between CADs and CAD to CAD and all this type of stuff. We didn't know they had made the decision to turn it off under the auspice that we had somebody that had done drugs. So over the few months that we were doing this, we thought this was a systems integration issue, and once we got everything worked out and up and operational, then the GPS system would be turned back on again. But it wasn't. It's been 2 years now, and we still don't have access to their GPS system to see where their cars are. And I believe on the podcast, the sheriff made it clear that you could walk into the sheriff's office and look over and see the screen where all those were at. So it's interesting to me that anyone can walk in and see them, but the 911 dispatchers don't have access to that. So that concerns me as a security professional with 20 plus years as a security professional running global operations centers and doing access control, badging, investigative work. I understand that there may be clandestine operations that need to go on, and maybe you want to turn off the GPS views for those people doing that, but to turn completely blind the 911 dispatch from seeing where your vehicles are. And I'll give you an example. Let's say that there's a deputy sheriff's officer sitting at Posey Crossroads where County Road 40 and County Road 57 intersect. County Road 57 is a dividing line between 2 districts. You could have a sheriff's deputy sitting at Posey Crossroads on this side of 57 and another one sitting on the other side. They'd be 2 different districts. If you go on up 57 to County Road, say 62, and you're about an eighth of a mile down County Road 62, and you call 911, you're in this district. We don't know where the guy in that district is. We know there's a guy assigned to that district. He could be at Piggly Wiggly over there off of County Road 40 and 31. We don't know where he's at. We don't know the other guys sitting at Posey Crossroads. We don't know where they are in their districts. So we have to dispatch the guy in that district. And if we find out through whatever means that he's further away, either they call us and tell us or he calls us and tell us, whatever, we are now taking extra time in an emergency situation to figure out who's closest, when if we had access to their map, we could dispatch this guy to make sure he's the closest one to get there at Posey Crossroads. So it saves time. So again, it's not a best practice. I don't think the excuse, in my professional opinion, holds up to his excuse of somebody was selling drugs, so I turned it off. Yes, the guy was selling drugs, and he did something he wasn't supposed to do, and he was arrested, and he's paying the price for it, and he was terminated immediately once we were aware of it. And we do everything we can to make sure we hire good employees just like everybody else does. We have a drug problem in this nation, and I'm sure that there are lots of organizations that have had people they've had to terminate for doing drugs, but we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We don't change best practices because of one bad incident. And I feel compelled, because I know the hard work our 911 director and dispatchers do to make sure that they're on their game. They're trained in medical response, they're trained in CPR, they're trained in crisis management, they're trained to deal with stress and trauma on a daily basis, and they put everything they can, their heart and soul, into doing this job. And to say that because one of them did drugs one time, no one else is reliable, is to me was not what I wanted my 911 dispatchers to hear. So I felt, since I am a board member of 911 and understand the background of what's going on, I felt compelled to come and at least defend my 911 dispatchers, that they are fully capable, fully trained, and a single collaborative system with a shared dispatch resource that costs a lot of money. And to replicate that and spend the tax dollars on replicating something that already worked, to me, is not a best practice. To create a separate database that doesn't work collaboratively together. I mean, if you just look at this last instance of somebody that was a be on the lookout for, this guy who was running around the county for a few days, we had to find. It took Prattville PD, Todd County Sheriff's Office, I think Central Alabama Community College's security group was dealing with that, Elmore County. I know the state had a helicopter flying over using thermals looking for him, I believe. A lot of law enforcement operations is a collaborative event. So the more that we can collaborate, the more that we can share resources, the more that we can work together. And this county could use a shot of working together. So it struck me as a security professional as odd that the story wasn't completely told, or that it was a defensive measure to respond in that way. So I felt compelled to come in and at least give the other side of the story, take Mr. Harrell up on his invite, to Todd County Sheriff's Office up on their invite to come in and talk about the rest of the story. So that's why I'm here. I'm not here to disparage the sheriff in any way. I think he's a good guy. I think he's probably a really good law enforcement officer, but I didn't appreciate the excuse that he gave for not allowing the dispatchers to do their job. It's to be quite frankly honest with you, it's to me such a bad practice, but it bothers me. So
let me ask you this, Mr. Newman. How do you think this issue gets fixed?
That's a good question, because I have been in a lot of different meetings as a 911 board member where the sheriff's office and Prattville information technology director and the 911 director have been in to talk about these things, and the environment hasn't been as collaborative as I would like to see it. It's been more so divisive in the fact that we want our own system, we want our own stuff, we want our own access, we want our own control, when it isn't necessary for that, in my personal opinion, to be that way. It's just collaboration. I mean, we've got to work together. If we don't work together as a city and as a county and a city board of education, I mean, all across the county, we need to focus on community and working together. And I would like to see the Todd County Sheriff's Office be a lot more collaborative. I mean, we already have um, a lot of strife nationally as it is, and everybody loves to pick and fight. And I'd be honest with you, what I'd like to see my hometown do is rise above it. We see what everybody else is doing and how petty it looks. Let's just work together. Let's just work together. We can find some common ground. We don't have to like each other, but we can at least work together. If we can work together, we can do a lot. If we can work together, we have so much potential in our city, so much potential in our county, so many people here that are so trained and involved in the community. And sometimes we just need to be able to get out of our own way, put our egos aside, our personalities aside, and work together.
Let me ask you this question. We're coming to a close. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you feel the public needs to hear?
Not about 911. I believe that my intent was to come in here and talk with you specifically about the 911 GPS mapping to make sure that everybody understood that what I said in the meeting was the Autauga County Sheriff's Office has turned off the mapping, the GPS, GIS or GPS mapping, and 911 dispatch cannot see that. And the sheriff confirmed that in his interview, that he had turned it off. I do want to say one other thing. The sheriff made the comment that it was extremely expensive for him to buy this GIS system. And again, I'm referring to his GPS mapping fleet tracking that he has, turning that back on at least so we can see it. But when I retire, maybe what I want to do is sell GIS equipment to Mr. Harrell, because $10,000 per car, I believe, is what he quoted. And that is absolutely not true. You can buy a 5G antenna for a law enforcement car for about $300. And you can buy the cradle and the rest of the equipment for about $800. And you just need a $30 phone Verizon plan to allow that to connect to the network. So you can be all in for $1,500, we'll say $2,000. You could have a car up and operational. So for $10,000, you could have 5 deputy sheriff cars up and operational. So, I mean, that's probably another excuse I believe that I heard him make, that it was very expensive. But I would challenge that argument. And if he's got questions about that, I believe we can get with the Prattville Police Department or our IT director, who has done a phenomenal job, by the way, supporting this entire transition away from the single server, and put a lot of time and effort into making sure that he helped them get out and as operational as they could be for what they were doing. But he would be more than happy to give them advice on where they can buy that a lot cheaper than $10,000. And none of the software back and forth there was no proof of concept. There was no coordination with anybody else. It was purchased, it was stood up, and we had to integrate it based on that. So I think that's the only other things around this that I would say. That's where a lot of this came into play, and we're still working through the bugs. We're still working to figure out how to get the information back and forth to the dispatchers, and it's added extra steps. And hopefully we can resolve it, but it's going to take a collaborative spirit to do it. Yes. And hopefully whoever wins the next election, and for full transparency, I do want to say I have made a video supporting Ty Thompson for sheriff. I made that video before the election. I didn't disparage any candidate. You can go to my page, Facebook page, and you can watch that video. And I didn't say one negative thing about any other candidate. I simply stated who I supported. And I believe as an elected official, I have the right to do that. We see our president, whoever it is, campaigning with candidates they want to see win Senate seats or House seats or governors. As an elected official, if I want to stand behind somebody that I think is competent in their job, I have the right to do that. And I did not do anything disparaging against any candidate when I made my video for Ty Thompson. I'm not making this video on behalf of Ty Thompson. I'm making this video or doing this podcast with you because as a 911 board member, I felt compelled to stand up for my 911 dispatchers because I didn't like the look that they were given based on the answer that the sheriff gave them. I'm passionate about taking care of those guys. They do a lot of hard work.
They're important.
A lot that people don't realize they're dealing with. A lot of stress, a lot.
Yes.
So.
Well, Mr. Newman, I just want to tell you, I appreciate you
Sure, I appreciate you letting me
coming
come on
on
your show. I do.
the
I appreciate it.
podcast. I also want to give a big shout out, because this whole thing started over the sheriff election that's coming up, and I just want to give a big shout out to Nicholas Canassi, to Kevin McNatt, to Ty Thompson, and to the current sheriff. I also want to give a big shout out to Judge Brad Ecktal and Carol Cook Carter. I appreciate all of you being willing to come on the podcast. I was talking with Mr. Newman right here, and even though I am quite the big fella, I'm quite small in my own eyes. And it's an honor for people like Mr. Newman and Ty and the sheriff and judges and all this stuff to come on the podcast. And I just want to appreciate all of you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for taking that time. We love the citizens of Watauga County and the surrounding areas. But before we close, I want to read this. It's our custom to do this because, like I say all the time, we can get into all the, of course, this stuff's very important, but we can do very important stuff our whole life. And if we get to the end of our life and we don't have Jesus, I truly believe it was for nothing. So I want to read this. It's Romans chapter 1, verse 16. It says, "For I am not ashamed of the good news about Christ. It is the power of God at work, saving everyone who believes, the Jew first and also the Gentile." And I believe that Jesus Christ is the only hope for humanity. And if you're watching this and you don't know Him, reach out. I would love to pray with you. I would love to get you connected to a church. And we're going to pray and we're going to close this episode out. Father, we just come to you right now. And God, I just speak a word of healing to my community. Father, I just thank you in the name of Jesus. Lord, that your hand and your peace be upon all these candidates. And Father, I just thank you that the name of Jesus gets elevated high. God, I just pray, Lord, because today's Thursday and we're going to be going to the forum here in just a few moments. God, I pray, Lord, that your hand is over the forum and the people. And Lord, we just thank you for dying for us. In Jesus' mighty name, we pray. Amen. Listen, we've got more coming down the pipe for you guys. Once again, thank you, Mr. Newman, for coming on.
Thanks for having me on.
He's very gracious to me. Also, I want to give a big shout out to all the law enforcement family that watches. Thank you guys for supporting us, for sharing, for doing all this stuff. All this stuff's for the people. It just goes back to, Abraham Lincoln. For the people, by the people. So I appreciate all you guys. And remember this, take Jesus everywhere you go.